rest of the family folks. Grab mom, take a little bit.
Yeah. You want to green and see?
Yeah, so, yeah, you guys want to sit next to each other?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. She can sit there.
Okay.
I'm going to move over there so she can sit
Yeah,
here.
makes sense. So she can do those for me.
Yes.
Put it right here.
Okay. Right here, Granny. Oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Slide you up.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Good morning. Thanks for you guys sticking around, and thanks for being patient with the family through a little bit of a delay, but thank you for being here. Yesterday, we filed a federal civil lawsuit in this case on behalf of this family and Jazmir Tucker. Jazmir, as you know, was shot and killed by Akron Police officer Deron Fields on Thanksgiving night, almost a year to the date. Jazmir was a child. He was unarmed, and he was shot 2 times in the back. Now, the body camera footage is incomplete. And why is it incomplete? Because Officer Fields failed to activate his body-worn camera video. That means that the most critical moments leading up to the shooting are not recorded. And that violation alone is unacceptable. But the facts we do have make it very clear. There was no immediate threat that justified lethal force in this case. Now, this case is about the accountability of Officer Fields, but it's not just about the accountability of one officer. It's about a violent policing culture in this city, a culture that continues to escalate encounters before confirming a threat exists. This isn't the first time. It's part of a pattern. In 2022, Jalen Walker was shot over 90 times. Officers fired more than 90 times. In 2024, Michael Jones was shot and killed during a traffic stop. And as we said, Jazmir was tragically killed almost a year ago on Thanksgiving night. And less than a year later, almost 2 weeks ago, another Akron officer shot an unarmed 36-year-old man 8 times after ordering him to remove his hands from his pockets. Now, the city now acknowledges he didn't have a gun. This keeps happening. And it keeps happening because Akron's police department is trained like a tactical force, not a constitutional one. Officer Fields in particular received extensive firearms and SWAT training, rifle drills, night vision operations, gas mask tactics. But he received almost no training in de-escalation, adolescent encounters, mental health response, or even proper body camera activation. When you train officers like combat soldiers, you get combat responses. When the city fails to correct the culture after each shooting, you get repeat tragedies. So this lawsuit is not just about damages, but it's about systemic reform. This family is demanding a number of things: mandatory de-escalation and constitutional use of force training, clear restrictions on rifle deployment and foot pursuits, real civilian oversight backed by subpoena power, discipline for officers who fail to activate their cameras, and more importantly, leadership, and we're talking to the mayor now, leadership willing to acknowledge the harm. This city must decide if it wants to keep repeating these tragedies or if it wants to change directions and protect life. This family is here because they refuse to let Jazmir's name be another headline that fades. They're demanding accountability not only for Jazmir, but protection for the next child who encounters police in this city. Justice is just the first step. Transformation must follow. Thank you. This time, my co-counsel Stanley Jackson is going to have some comments as well.
Stanley Jackson for the family of Jazmir Tucker. We're here today because there's a complete failure by the mayor of Akron, Mayor Malik. When he ran for mayor, he had 4 tenets: safety together, working together, living together. The reality is that safety was first. And if you look at his tenets, at the top it was in red, and specifically he mentioned that he wanted to see better policing and public safety, better training, better engagement, and that he wanted the community to feel safe and to be partners. Well, unfortunately, he's failed. And because of that failure, Jazmir Tucker has lost his life. Jazmir Tucker was killed on Thanksgiving, on a day that his family should be this year celebrating and enjoying together and rejoicing of them being together. This year, they will be celebrating Jazgiving. They will be supporting and loving each other through the pain. They will choose love over anger. But we're going to choose accountability. We're going to, as lawyers, choose to make sure that Jazmir Tucker's life mattered, that no other boy should have to go through this in this community, that if a mayor is going to run under those tenets, that he is held accountable along with his administration. This community deserves better. This family definitely deserves better. This lawsuit is just one step in that direction. And we will be relentless. You know this. We are always relentless, and we get results. And we will do that for this family. We want and we appreciate the continued support of the community as it relates to this family and Jazmir and his legacy. We want the answers that this family deserves. My co-counsel repeated it to you guys. Mayor, if you want to be the mayor that you sought out to be, make those changes. Because you didn't and you thought you had time, Jazmir lost his life. You are responsible for that. There's no other way around it. And the only way to be accountable is not to do the same thing that got us to this point. The community is watching, the world is watching. The unfortunate part is, in the last 4 years, 4 people have been injured, killed, 3 killed and 1 injured, who's critical right now, at the hands of this militarized Akron Police. The first tenet of your campaign is safety, together. Remember, together is a word that is an inclusive word, a word that should have included this family and should have included this community. We're going to hold you accountable to that. You should hold yourself accountable to that. As parents, we are devastated. We're still mourning Jazmir's life, but I want you to understand that Jazmir was a son, a brother, a twin, a nephew. He was the loving glue of this family. In fact, the day that he passed, they were enjoying Thanksgiving together, and Jazmir was trying to leave to make sure he could go visit some more of his family who were down the street. Just a boy wanted to go visit the rest of his family because he loved family. That was important to him. And family decided, hey, you know, everyone says this, when's the next time we're all going to be together? We never know when the last time it'll be that we'll see each other. And they took a picture together. Little did they know that was going to be the last time they were going to see Jazmir. But his legacy will continue to live on. His life will be the change that this community and this family deserves. Thank you.
We'll take questions now. Yeah.
For the attorneys, you guys obviously work, throughout the state. When you worked on this lawsuit, what did you notice specifically about Akron and this police department that might be different from other places throughout the city or the university?
Unfortunately, I wish I could say this is an outlier, but Akron is more aggressive and more violent than other police departments. And it's a culture that they've ignored those tendencies for decades. It's been widely reported. We know about the racist newsletter that circulated in this department in the 90s. Well, the chief, that's the chief now, he was a deputy chief at that time and said there's nothing wrong with that newsletter. Didn't have a problem with it. So that chief now sets the culture, and now we're seeing the results of that culture. Okay, so with respect to how it compares to other cities, unfortunately, it's similar, but it's certainly much more aggressive. I mean, you look, if anybody who's seen the training file for Fields, he's overly trained in combat tactics. And once we get the discovery in this case, my guess is that'll extend to all the other officers. So it's no surprise that this officer engaged Jazmir in a combat style, overly aggressive. Before they even wanted to render aid to Jazmir, they needed to get ballistic shields and approach him like he was still a threat. Think about that for a second. They had shot and killed who they knew to be a child and decided we're going to wait for ballistic shields first. Then we're going to approach him. And then not only we're not going to render medical aid, we're going to hopefully search through his pockets and hopefully find something because we know he didn't have a gun that he was pointing at anybody. You can see it on the body camera footage yourself. This is the department we're dealing with. And this culture continues because the leadership in this city, from the mayor to the chief, right on down to the supervising officers on the scene, refuse to change that culture. As Attorney Jackson said, we're going to hold them accountable, and we're not going to stop till they're held accountable.
To add to that answer, I want you guys to understand that one of the biggest tragedies is that Jazmir was a boy who was shot, and they waited 8 minutes to render aid. 8 minutes. A boy.
Yes.
Changing a culture in any department can be difficult. What would you like to see that to change in the Akron Police Department to change that culture?
Yeah, I think I went through some of those changes, and we'll continue to kind of, as we analyze this department through the litigation, we'll see where the gaps are. But it starts with leadership. You can't have a chief in place who thinks that there's nothing wrong with a racist newsletter in the 90s, and then he becomes a chief. It's problematic. You can't train officers in overly aggressive tactics, then be surprised when they use overly aggressive tactics. But that's not to say that there's not responsibility to Officer Fields in this case. He's supposed to act like a reasonable officer in this case. He ran out of his vehicle, took his personal rifle, engaged Jazmir without doing any investigation or assessment, and shot and killed him. That's not reasonable. That's unreasonable, that's reckless, and it's violent, but it's indicative of the culture that we have in this city, unfortunately.
For Jazmir's mother, can she speak at all about his legacy, and if you are okay with being by the mic so we can hear you better?
Do you want to?
The legacy that you would want to get across, and what you feel the importance of this lawsuit is for the community.
As you can imagine, this is a very emotional time. Timing is not great, obviously, but this is almost a year to the date when this has happened. What I can tell you from my experience with this family is that this family is full of love. Jazmir was kind of the light and love of that. He leaves behind one of his other halves, his twin. If you can only imagine what that's like, he leaves behind siblings. He leaves behind a great-grandmother, aunts and uncles, great-aunts and uncles. Anybody who has children, I have sons. Imagine what it's like to lose your child on a holiday, then have to go through that holiday the next year.
One of the things that I think we need to take into consideration is we are in an impasse in this community where we don't see the innocence of these young men in our community. We don't see them as us. We don't treat them with love. You know, officers are supposed to protect and serve. There was no protection for Jazmir on that night. There was no protection for this family. But once again, we are missing that this young man was just a boy who had his whole life ahead of him, that won't be able to do any of the things that this family would love to do with him. All the promises that the mayor gave to how this community was going to be different, he won't be able to enjoy any of those things if it ever happens, because he was killed by Akron Police.
Can I ask you, is there anyone from the family who wants to say anything while we're here that we want to get something across, either about Jazmir or about the lawsuit, that we think is important?
This is Jazmir's uncle.
State your
Introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Ephraim Frazier. I'm Jazmir's great uncle. Jazmir will leave a legacy of love. Jazmir will leave a legacy of help. I remember the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, he and Amir came by my mom's house to help us out, cleaning the house, getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner. And he was just helping. Anything, Granny, anything you need done. He and I and Amir, we helped her, and I had made pizza, and I like to, quote unquote, jazz up my pizza, so to speak. I put extra pepperoni, extra cheese, extra sauce, and I found out that Amir, Jazz, and I are all mildly lactose intolerant. That was the first time we had ever talked about it. And it's the simple things that matter. This was not someone who hated. This was a 15-year-old boy who loved his grandmother, who loved his mother, who loved his brother. He didn't deserve this. And now we have to go through life without a 15-year-old who had so much to give. I'm sorry. Jazz was always helpful. Snow, thank you. Rain, whatever he needed, whatever my mother needed, he was there. He was not just some run-of-the-mill kid. He was loved. He was our family member. And he was loved.
Do you view this as changes needed as well as?
Change is most definitely needed. You can't run around in a police state the way things are going around here. You have to investigate before you shoot. You just can't come out guns blazing when you get a call. Now, this is not an indictment of the good police officers of Akron. This is pertaining to those who do wrong, who don't do what they're supposed to do. Activate your body cameras, call calls in, do what you're supposed to do. Have a reasonable, articulable suspicion before you confront somebody.
Can you spell your name for us?
Ephraim, E-F-R-E-M, Frazier, F-R-A-Z-I-E-R.
Great uncle, did you say?
Great uncle, yes.
Thank you, sir.
Could I ask about the timeline of this next step? What do you expect, how is this going to play out?
Well, we filed suit. We expect that the city and the defendants will respond in some manner within the next 90 days by rules. We're filed in federal court, as you know. So the process will continue after that. We'll engage in discovery and get some of the information which we've been prevented from getting to this point. But fortunately, the federal rules allow for us to get those things, and we'll engage in the litigation process.
What information are you hoping to get in discovery that you haven't been?
Well, among other things, internal communications, training of all these officers involved. We want to get to the bottom of why this culture is so violent, why it's so aggressive, and everything else related to the investigation and the shooting of Jazmir in this case.
In your suit, you wrote since 2000, over half of the individuals involved in these shootings were black, and the Akron population, only 30% of the population is black. Can you speak to those statistics?
Yeah, and candidly, those numbers might be conservative. Anybody who's in this space understands that when it comes to use of force tracking and use of force statistics, these police departments don't keep track of that. So the data we've been able to get is by independent third-party sources. So to your question about the culture of policing, especially when it comes to communities of color, it's a much bigger issue, right? And it begs the question of whether or not the way we police in this country is even something we need to be thinking about. We need to be reevaluating how we police in general, but more specifically, how we police communities of color. Because what we do know is that when it comes to black and brown folks in this country, we don't get the benefit of the doubt. As you can see in Jazmir's case, he's a child, but oftentimes they try to perceive our children as young men. And that's just not the case. I just sat through a trial in Columbus, Ohio, after Takaya Young got killed in her parking lot as a pregnant black woman by an officer who just got acquitted down in Columbus, Ohio. So what does that say, in this case, say about how we treat communities of color when it comes to policing in this country? So we need to evaluate whether, in fact, the way policing is as it currently stands need to exist, or we need to have a massive reshaping of how we think about policing in this country.
Well, so we're talking about a lot of broad concepts here, changing culture. Is there anything specific and tangible that you want or the family wants to see within the next year, the next couple of months?
Well, the mayor said that he's interested in reviewing the use of force policy. They claim that it's going on, but nothing is changing. So at a bare minimum, the way you train your officers, as you can see, reflects in the way that they engage the public. If you train your officers as warriors, you prepare your officers for combat, they're going to engage the community as if it's combat and as if they're warriors. So stop training these officers as if they're in a police state and start training these officers as if they are what they say they are, which is civil servants engaging a community that doesn't need their violence, that needs their protection. And if they can't do that, then we need to come up with something else.
Additionally, I think my co-counsel mentioned it. I'm sorry. As he said before, de-escalation training. As we look through the files, you see absolutely no de-escalation training. There's no community engagement or involvement. Those things are paramount to constitutional policing. And we're going to get through those files, but the reality is that could be one of the immediate first steps, right? If you're in a community engaged, interacting with these young boys, if you're doing de-escalation training, understanding like how you as an officer engage someone almost predicts how that encounter is going to happen, that is important. That is important to this community. That's important to this family. And we believe that is clearly one of the first steps that has to happen.
Would you be able to say and spell your name for us? I don't think we got it again.
Robert Gresham, last name Gresham.
Stanley Jackson, Jackson.
And what we would say, and I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but to the mayor again, and to the leadership in the city, you say that you want to push for accountability. You say that you want to change things. Do it. Stop talking about it. Do it. Look no further than our complaint. The mayor has been quoted multiple times as saying what's necessary and what happens when you don't train your officers effectively. So stop talking about it and be about it. It's too late for Jazmir, but hopefully it's not too late for another child that has to run across Akron Police. It's too late for the gentleman who was shot 2 weeks ago, unarmed by Akron Police Department officers. Change it. Stop talking about it, change it, and that starts with taking accountability here and giving this family justice. There's no other questions. We thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting this family. What I would ask for you guys to do is you guys go down to the mayor's office, you ask him those questions about what change needs to happen. You guys help hold him accountable, because if he's not going to listen to us, maybe he'll listen to you. But I can tell you right now, we're going to make sure he hears us. That's why he's a part of this lawsuit. Thank you.
photo that I mentioned that they took. I have that photo. You come over, I'll share it with each one of you. You guys will have it.
Hey, Cass,